Hello, if this is a recommended video that you're just receiving through the YouTube algorithms, pause for a second. I cover most any horse racing that you would ever need, so stick around. You won't be disappointed. I've got great coverage. We're covering Breeders' Cup. This is going to be the preview video for the Dirt Mile. Lots of great horses in this race. The Big Ass Fans Dirt Mile, right? Got an acronym for that you'll love. Also, make sure you watch till the end for the big top 10 reveal. We're going to do the top 10 contenders for this race. So, the BC Dirt Mile is a balance of speed and strategy and stamina, endurance, all that kind of good stuff. Following the Cody's Wish journey last year was just such a great story. Hopefully, one of these contenders can make a good story for us this year. But before we get into it, if you are new and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Click that like button too. You will have done me a great service. So let's get into this. The Big Ass Fans Dirt Mile, aka BAFDM, right? Began back in 2007, and it kind of quickly created a niche, so to speak, for these milers and the one-turn milers, kind of an extended sprint distance, the ones that maybe just didn't have the stamina to get the classic distances of a mile and a quarter or even a mile and an eighth, but the ones that aren't quite fast enough that burn those 6 furlong, 7 furlong races, but you need a little bit more creativeness in a distance such as this. Now, all these horses that are profiled may not enter the race, but they are possible. We don't really know for sure exactly where. Some are sending, some are dual qualified, some are by way of have won Breeders' Cup Challenge races. So we're going to start with last year's nose runner-up, National Treasure. Lost to Cody's Wish in that epic battle down the stretch. Was outdueled just by a nose. Should be among the favorites in the betting market this year. Bob Baffert has got this 4-year-old trained up with some really fantastic early speed and well suited for the Del Mar Dirt, well suited for the mile. Wins at a mile, wins at 9 furlongs sometimes too. Now did get defeated in his most recent one in Santa Anita, going 9 furlongs in the California Crown. Jockey Flavian Pratt just put the horse in position and was just unable to hold off a late charge by Subsanador. Subsanador earns the ticket to the Classic. And I believe Newgate, the third place finisher, lost the whole thing by less than a neck, was third place. I think that Newgate has points and does run the classic distance, has won the Santa Anita handicap at a classic distance. So he's got that distance, no problem, but he could possibly go in the Dirt Mile. So another one that raced in that California Classic, don't know if you want to call it a strategic mistake by trainer Bob Baffert, but he put his horse Muth in his promising 3-0 Colt Muth in versus older horses in that race, and just didn't get it done. Was a grade 1 winner at 2 years old, runner up to Fierceness in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year. Passed on the Derby Trail for obvious Baffert suspension, but then he also scratched out of the Preakness due to the fever. Returned to racing in September in a real soft landing spot, shared belief, going 8 furlongs. A race he easily won, was on the Del Mar Dirt, but it wasn't really much of a test for him. But then he entered the California Crown versus Older, like I said. I think he got a lesson in speed. He came up empty down the stretch. I don't know what the real explanation was. I just thought maybe he just wasn't competitive enough against older horses. So trainer D. Wayne Lucas, however, it may send his top prospect, Seize the Gray, in this race. Now, Seize the Gray could go into Classic. Remember, he came onto the scene by winning the Pat Day Mile on Derby Day. Then he won the Preakness at a mile and 3/16 in wire-to-wire fashion. But then he kind of fell off his next 2 races and was likely in need of a layoff. And that was just my own personal opinion, because he came right off that break after the Jim Dandy. I think he finished 7th in that race, but he came back off a 2-month layoff, stronger than ever, took to the lead, ran him all the way down in the Penn Derby, hit the top of the stretch, got a real big challenge from Stronghold in that race, which is a very good horse I was highly fond of. Repelled him with Prejudiced, winning down the stretch almost by four lengths. He would be a top contender if he does enter this race. Like I said, I don't know all of these. Stronghold might be pointing to this race as well. He's a 3-year-old trained by Philip D'Amato. He's running 5 derbies this year, winning the first 2. Ran a fairly respectable 7th in the Kentucky Derby. I can remember him being amongst the 4 or 5 spread in vying for the lead in the top of the stretch, but couldn't get there. Then after that was in the Indiana Derby, was chasing Dragoon Guard in that second place the whole way. Then was soundly defeated at Parks by Seize the Gray. So I don't think he has the front end speed to compete at a miler level. I don't know where he'll go if he didn't go in the mile. The Classic is no bueno. I don't think he'd be able to. I don't even know if he'll qualify for that, to be honest with you. But anyway, a horse that could qualify, and a very interesting horse, in my opinion, who has improved exponentially since I caught him on the Derby trail, is Chad Brown's Domestic Product. Was not very impressed with that Tampa Bay Derby win. Shout out to people in Tampa and everybody. My dude Stewie's down there. I don't know if Stewie watches the horse racing videos, but he watches the golf videos. He is right in the midst of this hurricane. So hang tight, brother. Help's on the way. So to everybody down there that's dealing with this, we're thinking about you. So anyway, PSA over. Fast forward to Monmouth. Second place finish in the Pegasus, which was an improvement, but really he got beat down the stretch by a Tuscan Sky, who's probably pretty average, by 6 lengths. But then he comes around in the grade 2 Dwyer, 4-5 chalk in a 4-horse field. He gets the job done, but he did earn a triple-digit buyer figure, 101 to be exact. So that was the first time that he's actually really shown speed in the entirety of a race. He's always had pretty good down the stretch speed, but then he goes into the Allen Jerkins down to 7 furlongs, grade 1 sprint at Saratoga. Now you can color me impressed, because he got it done that day. He stalked the pace in 5th through a 22-second, 44-second opening half, then took on challenges from both Prince of Monaco and Bookham Dano, who have had, Bookham Dano obviously has had some huge signature wins this year. So not to mention Timberlake coming in second off his layoff, another strong contender. So Baffert's Prince of Monaco was second on that day, but that run from Domestic Product down the stretch was just really impressive. So definitely got my eye on him. Both Prince of Monaco and Bookham Dano, I think, go in the mile as well. I don't know about Timberlake. He's possible for the mile. He didn't make the top 10 rankings because I don't know where he'll fall. He could even go to the sprint. I don't know what he's qualified for, but I think he is listed in the points category of the, but he's toward the bottom. So in the mile. Now, Bookham Dano, Bradford's Prince of Monaco, was on his second off the layoff as well in that race. He's improving. Second to Bookham Dano and the Woody Stevens, sired by Spadestown, I think gives him speed. Damn side is Rainier, is by Medaglia d'Oro, and I think that gives him a little bit of the stamina for the distance of 8 furlongs. Bookham Dano, same way. He's the pride of Derek Ryan's barn this year. Burst onto the scene back in January by blowing him out down the stretch in the Pasco Stakes. He's stalker for these sprint distances is rare, but there's a few of them in this race. He almost shocked the world, dazzled the world. He had the lead down the stretch in the Saudi Derby, but only if Forever Young were just a little later down the stretch. But then he bounced back big time in the Woody Stevens. That gave him some major street cred. For his effort in the Jerkins, I thought was good as well. So Safi Joseph, we get to the next one up. Skippy Longstocking. Safi Joseph might be returning to this year's race. He's listed in the Classic as well, so he could go either way. But he finished third behind Cody's Wish and National Treasure last year in this race. Ran pretty well. I mean, he was obviously the third, between the two. I mean, the two, Cody and National Treasure, were 1-2 nose to nose, but Skippy was behind him clearly. 2024 was a tough start as the Florida Heat got to him in the Pegasus World Cup, so he kind of DNF'd that race. But then he bounced back to win back-to-back graded stakes races. He also has a grade 2 victory at the Charlestown Classic running on the front end. And then in the second, in the Woodward Stakes, most recently on the front end as well. He's just a horse that shows up on race day. He had the clear lead in the Woodward. He looked clear on a sloppy, wet race day, but was unable to hold off a late charge by Tappet Trice. And no telling where Tappet Trice is going to go. I imagine he'd probably try the Classic. But this actually may turn out to be a good setup because he's cutting back to 8 furlongs. So Skippy is going to be a contender regardless in this race, and you could get juicy odds on him if the public forgets about him a little bit. Now, next up, a very intriguing horse in my opinion, Post Time, a 4-year-old bifrosted, trained by Brittany Russell. First took notice of this one. Grade 2 Carter going 7 furlongs at Aqueduct back in the spring. Not easy coming from off the pace in these sprints, but this guy can do it as well. But he hit the stretch, and I believe T-Gaff was on the mount that day. And Super Chow just continues to drift out and out and out to the right. So he had to continue outward after the decision was made to go around him on the outside. He just had to keep going on outward until he got up even with him, and then he extended past him and got up for the finish. Next race, he pushed it out a little bit to 8 furlongs in the Westchester. He was no match for Messier, but he did close well for a good second place. And then after that, he was my stone cold exacta in the Met Mile, where I was just convinced National Treasure, coming out of that Wilson chute from the side, was going to win that race. So Post Time came through down the stretch and delivered in the closing for the place. Showed some really good kick in the 9 furlong Whitney, finishing third behind Arthur's Ride and Crouppy. So he couldn't hold off Crouppy coming in for second place. But you can see his closing speed is there. He could be a threat to take this race in dramatic fashion. So he's one I'll keep an eye on for big odds come November 2nd. Next one up, one I hesitated. I wasn't really sure, but I love Mark Glatt as a trainer. Dr. Venkman, West Coast 4-year-old gelding by Go Zapper, won the San Diego Handicap back in July. And then he ran a pretty steady Eddie fourth in the 1.25 Pacific Classic, going classic distance. So cutting back to a mile should be pretty good for him. All these horses won't make the top 10, but I have to include the ones that are Breeders' Cup Challenge winners, like 3 Technique. He won the Grade 3 ACAC here at Churchill Downs toward the end of the meet to secure his place in the event. Quality horse, but probably not going to win. That was sloppy sealed track, reduced to a field of just 4 horses. Now, Japan's contender, Crown Pride, is a 5-year-old. He has 2 wins and 4 starts this year. The Mercury and Korea Cups went his way, but he has not raced on U.S. soil since the 2022 Kentucky Derby. So, finishing up, nailing down a top 10 here is pretty tough. I've seen some videos come out with top 5s. Yeah, I could give you a top 5, but I'm giving you a top 10. So just bear with me a second as we get it together. I am going to stick with number 1, National Treasure. I just think he's going to be on top. He's going back to where he won. He broke his maiden in 2022. I just think his front end speed, and if he gets a good break and gets a reasonable pace, I don't think Seize the Gray. If Seize the Gray goes, it's going to be those 2 vying for the lead. Then we could have a complete pace meltdown. So it's going to be interesting to see. But if Seize the Gray does go, I'm ranking him number 2. He can fly on the wet track. But will he hang in on a real straight up dry West Coast track? I don't know. The Pat Day Mile was the day after Oaks, and it was still a wet day, even though the track was fast. The track was still heavy from the previous day's rain. And I feel like it was kind of that same way at Parks. It wasn't exactly dry either because we had remnants from Hurricane Helene coming through that same weekend. So now we got coming in at number 3. I'm putting Post Time in there. I think it was the age thing and just a year older and a year more mature. They're both similar horses. Post Time and Bookham Dano are 3 and 4 respectively, but Post Time is a bit more seasoned as a 4-year-old. So I both like both their closing speed, obviously, and Bookham Dano is good enough to compete and come from off the pace as well. Now I've got number 5 being Domestic Product. His recent improvements, I think, make him a dangerous off. All these horses come from off the pace. Domestic Product is an early presser, so I don't know if some horses gifted the lead, like a National Treasure, or even like Seize the Gray came from off the pace in the Pat Day Mile, so he's versatile in both respects. But National Treasure is going to go out and look for that lead right off. So if he can get out there on the lead and set moderate to decent pace figures, then I don't think anybody's going to catch him, and he's going to wire the field. But then you got coming in at number 6, Prince of Monaco. Number 7, Skippy Longstocking. Number 8, Dr. Venkman. Number 9 is Newgate. I don't know when if Newgate goes in the Classic or he goes here, but I just put him ranked in the top 10 anyway. And then rounding out the 10 is going to be Stronghold. I didn't include Muth. I don't know if Muth is listed for this race. I don't know which race he can't. I don't think he can compete in the Classic, but I honestly don't think he can compete in this race either. I thought he was caught between a rock and a hard place. He's not. I don't think he's fast enough for the sprint either, but I don't know if he could. Maybe he can go the sprint. I don't know. But anyway, I just thought maybe they'll just, hang up the shoes, so to speak, and train him up for next year and try to come back at 4 and dominate. Some horses just, it don't pan out for him at 3. So I don't know if that's the case or not. But Muth would probably be somewhere in the rankings in the 8, 9, and 10 range of these horses. Prince of Monaco, somewhere around there, but I'm not including Muth. I didn't think he earned it, to be honest with you. I thought he looked a bit exposed in his last race, but it was against older horses, as will it be here. So that's going to do it for this edition preview series, Breeders' Cup, covering the BAF DM. Remember to subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button while you're at it. And if you enjoyed the content, share it on social media. If you're on Facebook, if you're on X, formerly Twitter, you can follow me at Billy Ho Sports on X all day long. So more previews to come on the circuit. Until next time, we'll see you soon.